Hi everyone, today I'm here with my January book reviews. I'm really excited to do it because January was a really fun month, a great month to start the year off with. If you remember, my monthly theme was Dystopia, which is a genre which I absolutely adore. So today I'm going to be reviewing all of them books in this video. I've never tried anything like it before, so I'm hoping the video is not too long. Hopefully I won't ramble for ages and ages. So I guess I better not ramble when I'm starting the video. So let's get on with the book reviews straight away. So the first book I read in January was actually my favourite book. It was Champion by Marie Lu, which is the third and final book in the Legend trilogy. I absolutely adored this book so much. So basically, Western United States is now home to the Republic, which is a nation constantly at war with one another. The book centres around the main two characters of Day and June, who are very different. They very much juxtapose each other in their personalities and backgrounds. Day's background is that he was born into the slums, he's the country's most wanted criminal, and he doesn't have many opportunities. Whereas June was born into an elite family, she is rich with lots of opportunities and a good education, so she's absolutely the opposite to Day. These two characters basically meet by chance, and when this happens, their lives will never be the same again, and that's where the trilogy starts off. And then in this book, it ends with amazingness and shockingness and awesomeness. So firstly, let's talk about the characters, which I absolutely adore. I love Day and June. They've really grown on me throughout this trilogy, and they're just amazing characters. I definitely think the character development throughout this whole trilogy was absolutely flawless. I just love it when characters grow on you throughout the books. At the end of the book, I realised how much emotion I actually felt towards the characters. I became very attached to them, and I just wanted to support them throughout, and I just absolutely loved them. There was definitely a clear direction where each character was going. Everything was very in-depth and complex, which I loved. And even the side characters as well, they were amazing. Now let's talk about the plot. Oh my gosh, the plot: intense, epic, unpredictable. Every single good adjective you can describe a book with goes into the plot. It was just great. I just couldn't stop reading this book. The plot was so unpredictable, and I just felt like it was the most exciting of the three. Everything got going straight away. There was a clear plot direction from the start, and I just enjoyed how the events unfolded. The events at the beginning and end of the book were my favourites. I was just so shocked at these points. My reactions were crazy because, when I'm shocked at a book, I do give crazy reactions. This book is definitely the most romantic of the three, definitely between the characters of Day and June, but at the same time the action wasn't compromised. The romance was a really nice thing on the side. It really added to the plot actually, made the characters a little bit more likeable as well. I just loved the dimension that it added to everything, so I'm really glad that, that was there and it wasn't bad. For the writing style, I would say that the writing is amazing. It's very fast-paced, which works so well with the fast-paced plot. There's also a perfect balance between description and dialogue. I really enjoyed reading all the vivid descriptions that Marie Lu provided. In all of the books in this trilogy, the chapters variate between the two characters' perspectives, and I felt like in this book it really emphasised the differences between them. They are close to each other, there is still hope, but the differences will always be there, and they can't be removed. So overall, I decided to give Champion 5 out of 5 stars because it was just perfect. I couldn't give it anything else but 5. I've become really attached to the characters. I loved how action-packed this book was, and I loved the writing style as well, and I couldn't find flaws in anything. I'm so glad that this was my favourite book of the trilogy, and actually what I really love about this trilogy that it is improved with every single book. Legend started with a 4 out of 5 stars, Prodigy got 4.5, and Champion got 5 out of 5, so it's just amazing. I love it when writers improve, and I think I've mentioned this a lot before, but it's definitely a good quality that Marie Lu has. So now let's move on to the second book review, which is of 1984 by George Orwell. This is a classic standalone book. Basically, we have the main character of Winston Smith in the 1984 setting. We read about his rebellion towards Big Brother, which is basically the government that looks over everyone and controls everyone's actions, and he pursues a forbidden love affair through a nightmare-like journey. This book definitely reflects society at the time of the book, but also nowadays as well. I really liked how that worked in a very horrifying way. So firstly, I'm going to talk about the characters. I felt that Winston Smith was a very intriguing character. There was lots about him, and he was definitely a very complex character. George Orwell really developed him well and had a clear character development direction. However, I don't know if he was very likeable. Although he was intriguing, I didn't connect with him at any point. I didn't really feel for him, and I honestly feel that this hindered my enjoyment of the book. So that is a shame. I don't know if it's because it was set in the past, and maybe past characters aren't as relatable, but I don't know, I just didn't get that. There was sort of like a barrier between the reader and the character. So in terms of the plot, it was very intense and very creepy as well. I absolutely loved that. I've never read anything like it before, and it was so impacting. This is a really different side to Dystopia which I've not read before, and I was looking for that in the theme, so that's positive. I definitely felt like the themes that were woven into the plot as well were very important and great to read about, and everything became more obvious as things progressed. However, certain scenes were a little bit slow to get going, and I was waiting for stuff to happen at times. Although parts were intense, other parts were not. I just wanted a bit more flow between the chapters, and then everything would have been a little bit better for me. So now let's talk about the writing style. The writing style was definitely very atmospheric. It was vivid and full of different descriptions. I think these descriptions really helped to portray a very terrifying world where there were lots of questions to be asked, and then actually most of the questions were answered. At times, however, there was too much description, and this is something which I never really like in books, because although I like description, I also like dialogue, and I like them to be balanced between the two. Parts were very overly described for me, and I don't know if maybe this is why the plot is a bit slow at times, but the pacing just needed a little bit more improvement. A bit more dialogue would have made things much easier to read and comprehend. I just think it would have flowed better and paced everything out a bit. So overall for 1984, I'm giving it a 3 out of 5, because although I did enjoy aspects of it, I was a little bit disappointed. It didn't really live up to my expectations. It's a very hyped up classic dystopia, and you know, parts fell flat, and I'm sorry about that. However, it's still a very scary book. It's a very different side to dystopia, so it's not something I would not recommend. It's just not my favourite dystopia of the month. In fact, it is my least favourite of the month. So now let's move on to the third and final book which I read this month, which was Shades of Grey by Jasper Fforde. This is an amazing dystopia. So basically in this book, if you can see on the higher end of the colour spectrum, you have a better social standing than those who can't see as high. The main character is Eddie Rosette, who can only see the colour red. Everything else in between that is shades of grey, and the only way to see colours is to artificially colour them. But the world wasn't always this way. There was a time before this when things were completely different. People could actually see colours. So first of all, let's talk about the characters. Each character was definitely very unique, and their actions were unpredictable. I also found that each character had a very different background, which ultimately impacted their lives and what happened to them in the book. There was no character that was identical, and this is something which I absolutely adore, differences between characters. However, although I liked the main two characters of Eddie and Jane, I didn't really connect loads with them, and I don't know what it was. I just felt like, a bit like 1984, there was a barrier. That was kind of a shame. I didn't fully get to know everything about them. Moving on to the plot, I felt that this was such a vivid, unique idea, very different, and an amazing concept. I have to say, it's something that I really wanted to read, and it persuaded me to get reading it straight away. I would say that odd parts were not as interesting as other parts. Certain chapters were not as intense or exciting. Maybe I would have preferred a little bit more consistency in that aspect. In terms of the writing style, there was a great balance between description and dialogue, which made it very fast-paced. It was just a really easy, quick, fun read, which I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed the descriptions about what was happening at different times. I really felt that they reflected the mood of the book. You know, it was quite a dark concept at times. So I would also say that although dystopia books generally do have a very crazy world building, and normally it's actually very good, in this book I felt like I was just thrown into it and expected to understand everything. I wanted the world building to be a little bit more gradual, and then I think I would have comprehended everything more, because at times it was just a little bit crazy. But overall, I'm going to give this a 3.5 out of 5. It was definitely a fun read, but it kind of had aspects which are a little bit disappointing. The highlight, however, was definitely the concept of the whole thing. It was so unique, and I think if you're looking for a very, very different dystopia, definitely try this one out. So everyone, that is it for the book reviews for the books that I read in January. I really hope you enjoyed. Hopefully the video is not too long. I really enjoyed the dystopia theme. Champion was definitely my star book of the month. It was amazing. By far the favourite. It was just miles better than the rest. I also really love Shades of Grey. At times I didn't love all of it, but it was good. 1984 was a little bit disappointing, but you know, I've read it now and I have an opinion on it. It's definitely a classic which I've wanted to read for a while, and finally I've read it. So thanks everyone for watching, and see you all again later.